Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher here at home, and Adam Kaplan. You can see it if you're watching on YouTube live from Indianapolis at the NFL Scouting Combine. He's been there all week. We're going to get into a lot of stuff pertaining to the Eagles as they are out there in Indianapolis getting some work done. They're interviewing for their quarterback coach vacancy. The NFLPA report card came out, and maybe the grades weren't as good as maybe the product was on the field. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then, of course, the salary cap number and some transactions. But, Adam, before we get into this, I see that you look pretty good. I'm going to assume that if you've made it to Starbucks, you've not gotten swung on. Nobody's hit you from behind or anything like that.
That's unbelievable. This story between two reporters. See, my brouhaha back in like 08 or 09, it was before, I think it was around the start of Twitter, because Twitter got involved in it. I'll leave it at that. It's a long story. Guy's no longer in the business, who nobody liked. This guy had problems with a lot of us do reporting. I had my issue with him, and I called him out, and that was that. And we didn't fight, we didn't throw down, but I got in his face.
Right.
It's for another reason, but no, the thing that I didn't know anything about it, so I don't know. I guess on Thursday morning, I was just seeing if there was anything I missed when I woke up. I'm like, what is this? I just was like, what? I was kind of surprised, to say the least, because in today's wildness of social media, you try not to be the story. You should never be a story, and it's unfortunate, but who cares? Honestly, but it did happen, and it's funny because at the JW Marriott is where a lot of agents hang out and clubs hang out. Though a lot of teams are not bringing their coaches this year. It's more than ever. It's weird, but that's a hotel which is heavily trafficked by a lot of coaches and a lot of clubs and a lot of media, and that's kind of where this happened apparently.
What do you make? I'm going to ask, well, first of all, let me say the Philadelphia media should take a bow. I mean, they're not involved. Usually it is the Philly media where you hear about guys swinging on other guys, but it's been a long time since we've had that happen. So it's nice. But what do you make of fewer coaches? Do you have a roundabout number of some teams that you can tell did not bring their full coaching staffs?
Yes. So I know the Commanders, I don't believe I know the front office people here, but I don't know, other than Dan Quinn, I don't believe their coaches are here. Mm-hmm. The Patriots, it's Mike Vrabel, and I believe a special teams coach is here. The Rams didn't bring anybody. And in fact, they're the one team, you and I talked about it. I'm pretty certain they don't bring their personnel people here either, which I don't understand. I don't know why you wouldn't want to interview these kids. It's an opportunity to get in front of them. I understand you get all the workouts taped and all that, but anyway. So I know those teams. I know the 49ers, I don't think are sending most of their assistants. I think most are staying home, when I understand. So, yeah, it's kind of a trend. Like the first time I heard the Rams doing this, I'm like, why? But I understand it a little better, but I still think passing up an opportunity to get in front of players is not smart. But, hey, they know more than we do.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing I can say about our industry and covering the NFL is that if you look into a crystal ball in 10 years, whatever it is that you're covering is probably going to look a lot different, whether it's rule changes within the game or off-season events. Because you were just reflecting with me on my first combine experience, which I can't remember what year it was, maybe 08 or 09. So we're talking 10, 15 years ago now. But even 3 or 4 years into it, I do remember at the time where there was a lot of media. It was clearly growing. Like Paul Domowitch used to say, I used to go to the combine and the only person there was me. But when I started going, they still put the media on the concourse. It might have still been RCA Dome at that point where the cafeteria was. So it was a big cafeteria, but now there are literally so many people there that they put them in that huge Sagamore ballroom, which is like gigantic in comparison.
Actually, not anymore.
Now it's different now?
No, we're actually in the convention center in a big. I don't know what we're in the convention center, but no, it's not.
I'm talking about the writers, though. The writers are still, I think, in the state.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I see. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, where I am. So what you're talking about, the media room where the guys could do their stories, is the Sagamore room, which you're talking about.
Right.
Where I am this is where they created this 5-6 years ago. They actually have a radio row. We call it now media row because so many podcasters are doing shows like us, you and I, for what we're doing here. But I'm going to say half of the NFL teams are here, like actually more than we see at the Super Bowl. It tells you how big this thing is for the media.
Wow, that is really, really interesting. So yeah, and who knows in 10 years, Adam, with advancements and with fewer prospects even doing a lot of the work. I know this year it seems like a lot, even more so than normal, of the top prospects aren't taking part. We saw last year Marvin Harrison Jr. sort of, I don't want to call him pioneer it, but he almost did like nothing, right? As far as testing, he only did interviews. So I have a feeling it's going to start to go, everything is cyclic in the NFL, like Marty Morningweg used to say.
Thank you, Marty. Yeah.
And that wouldn't surprise me if 10 years down the road, there's fewer prospects, fewer people. Maybe it's not even Indianapolis, who knows? But you just can't ever accurately predict how this thing is going to look with the NFL in 10 years.
Well, let me go back before we get started and get into the quarterback situation with the Eagles, the coach thing. When I first came here, and you talk about Paul Domowitch, Domo tells a great story, by the way, of even go to the owners' meetings when Al Davis, the late Al Davis, was the Raiders' managing partner, when he would hold court at the owners' meetings, because there were like 15 media guys would go to the owners' meetings in the early 90s. But back when Deion Sanders ran that incredible 40, like a 4.29 or 4.25, there might have been 5 or 6 reporters, probably
Right.
Peter King, Damo. I don't know of anyone else. I know agents would come. Frank Bauer, who has Frank Bauer actually had Mark Brunell. Frank tells that trade about Mark Brunell almost was an Eagle. It's another story for another time. We do off-season stuff in June. We'll get into some crazy stories that you and I know about, which we've probably never talked about, but that's one of them. But the old-time agents would come, but that was it. Like, it was before Drew Rosenhaus was an agent. That's how long ago this was. Drew's now in his late 50s. So things have changed here. You're right. When I first came in here in 2002, there were maybe 50 of us. Now there's a couple thousand who come here. That's how big it is.
All right, let's talk about the Eagles. I said a couple of weeks ago, maybe last week we were talking, and I said, whenever the Eagles play this deeply into the postseason, and other NFL teams too, it becomes harder to fill coaching vacancies. A lot of the NFL coaching tree has already made its movement, right? And it's pretty common for teams to look to the college ranks to try to get some guys. We saw the Eagles do that themselves with Gunter Brewer, right? And even other years that they made the playoffs, they've went to the college ranks for certain position coaches. So we know they've interviewed Syracuse's quarterbacks coach. His name is Nunzio Campanelli. He's the assistant head coach also and quarterbacks coach. I happen to know a couple of people who both coached and played on teams that he's coached on. So he's an interesting guy. And this is just an example, though, Adam, of the Eagles having to, I think this is a good thing that they do. They have constantly kicked the tires on upcoming coaches in college, whether it was the defensive coordinator for Georgia. At one point, it was Graham Harrell, right, from USC, wasn't it?
Yeah, wow. That's long ago. Yeah,
they're not afraid to do that. It doesn't mean they're definitely going to hire the guy, but they like to know who's out there, who's doing a good job. The Syracuse Orange led the NCAA last year in passing yards. So this guy is a quarterback's coach. He's not the offensive coordinator or play caller, but he's a real Jersey guy. So that may sound like nothing, but really, honestly, he's, from the people I spoke to him, he started off his coaching career at Don Bosco and Bergen Catholic, which are two of the biggest New Jersey powerhouses in football that there are. He comes from a family of football guys. His brother is the defensive coordinator now of the Jaguars. His brother's name is, do you know his brother's name? Anthony Campelli. His father was a coach. So the guys I spoke to who know Nunzio say he is like your quintessential kind of coach's coach. Like, the bloodlines are there, very detailed, very, very knows how to relate to certain players. So interesting guy. He's just one guy that we know that the Eagles are interviewing. We'll see where it goes. But again, I like that the Eagles they don't limit themselves to just one area, right? They'll look at the names in college. They'll look at the names around the NFL.
Yeah, one of the things I really like about him is he's a 2-time former interim head coach at Rutgers and Syracuse. Yep. I love that about him, that he has that in his background. I think that's great. He's also coached tight ends, which you like. He's been a high school coach. He's called plays before. So look, he's done it all really at the college level, and he also coached at the high school level. He's come from a coaching family. You mentioned his dad being a coach, so I like that. Like Jalen Hurts, ironically, his dad is a high school coach, so I like this, man. And then Nick Sirianni, hello, he's got the same stuff as Campanelli here, pretty much as his background. So it's a good thing. Yeah, we'll see where this goes. They have to interview. They're going to interview others, but this guy's got a real shot to get it. So now, what I always say about these things, no matter what has been reported or speculated or what people think, it depends how these guys interview. I don't care how great of a coach they are, and he's been a coach a long time. Since 2000, he's been coaching. So he's well into his 40s, so he's a seasoned coach, but he's a football guy, no question about it, but got to interview well, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, he's rare in that a lot of times you see guys who've coached like 20 plus years in the industry, and you look at where they've been, and it's like they've been all over. This guy has generally been in the Northeast. He has not left the Northeast. He was in high school from 2000 to 2017. Then he was at Rutgers from 2018 to 2022, and then Syracuse the last 2 years. And there's a lot of Rutgers and Temple flavor at Syracuse right now. They have Fran Brown there as the head coach. So yeah, I mean, like this is his wheelhouse. He knows the area. And the only thing you wonder, and I think this would be with anyone who's his only experience is high school and college. He has no NFL experience. And then when you bring him into a position as important as quarterbacks coach, where you're working with a Super Bowl champion quarterback in Jalen Hurts, how does that relationship work? Is there enough respect for a guy who has not coached in the NFL level? But again, I think that, like you said, like having that clout of being the son of a coach and coming from a coaching family, and Jalen can relate to that. That would probably be a pretty good icebreaker there.
Yeah, I like your point, though, really. The selling point here of all of this is the fact that he's never worked in the National Football League. And you don't coach guys the same as you did in college or high school. So if he gets the job, that would be a challenge. But I like it, though. As you said, they're expanding their reach. We know they've interviewed and hired a number of college coaches over the years. And last year's group didn't work out on defense, unfortunately. We're talking about last year in 23, not this past season where they won a ring. So we'll see what happens here. But I thought it was a very interesting interview.
Yep, we will see what happens and other names that surface out of that. The other big news, Adam, I guess it's big news, is the NFLPA report card came out. It's a report card where they do this every year for the last few years. You get graded on 11 total categories. The Eagles finished the year 22nd. They were 4th the year before. Before we get into each category, what do you make of that? Because I definitely think timing of this matters, right? It's not surprised they went to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They finished 4th. They have a collapse at the end of last year, and then all of a sudden they finish here 22nd. It does feel like the level of like what happens during the season on the field sort of factors into how, and I think that's human nature. Like if you're happy, things are going well. If you're not happy, all of a sudden things that maybe not have bothered you suddenly bother you.
What I found interesting is, and you mentioned the drop, because again, it was done late August through late November. So they're missing their Super Bowl run. As you said, if players aren't happy, they don't play. It's nothing different than in any job you have. If you're not happy, you probably won't perform at your best. But I'm a little surprised when I look at the ownership grade. Jeffrey Lurie, not that B is a bad grade, but that's not in the upper half. Like how's he not getting an A or even an A minus? Like Nick Sirianni, by the way, got an A minus. I think that's very fair. Although it's funny. We'll get back to Jeffrey Lurie in a minute, but just one thing I want to mention about Sirianni. In the write-up from the NFLPA, it says 93% of the Eagles players feel their head coach Nick Sirianni is efficient with their time, but he ranks 19th out of 32 with an A minus. So I'm a little surprised by that. But the big surprise is Jeffrey Lurie not getting an A or A minus. I know that NovaCare is smaller comparatively to maybe some other facilities. Okay, you've been there 1,000 times, maybe even more than that. They're limited. The locker room did not get a great grade. I don't know what you could. I'm not sure. You tell me. What can they do to make the facility bigger or better? I'm not sure.
Well, I think that's just it. I think it's really a function of the NovaCare complex now being 25 plus years old and not really I mean, they've made some modifications in the building to make it look nicer, but you can't. They haven't made it bigger in any stretch or any way. I also, the link itself is starting to get older, and so the home locker room there can be very crowded. They have the biggest media throng in the NFL, so when the reporters come in, it gets a little tight and congested in there. That's why they pull guys into the podium and try to separate where the mob is going. That's all stuff that sort of came with when they built the link and how to manage crowd control. And there have been several newer stadiums built in the last 10 years that are more spacious, that have more. I mean, the link is great. I love it. I think, for football authenticity, it's a great place. But, if you played at SoFi Stadium, you probably look at the facilities at the link and the facilities at the NovaCare and think this could be a lot better. But that's just the nature of how it's sort of like free agency. You're the new hot thing because you're a free agent. Well, the Eagles haven't built their newer facilities yet. I'm sure they will at some point. So it lags behind there.
Yeah, the only thing that I would say concerning, and this can have an effect on how players feel. The team travel got an F grade. Yeah. Here's the language. Here's the wording. 43% of the Eagles players believe they have a comfortable amount of space on team flights, ranking them 30th out of 32. That's not good. The players feel that their team travel is not very efficient, a rank of 26 out of 32 teams. The players feel that, oh boy, here we go, that they should get first-class seats on team flights instead of the coaching staff. Mm-hmm. I've never worked for a team in terms of traveling on a plane, so I don't know. I could see, listen, there's no question that you cannot feel good physically. It's like I've said, why do I get stretched after traveling? I feel like a pretzel. After I'm like all scrunched. Even if you don't have first class and have a little bit more foot space, that's great. But you're still confined a little bit. If the players are in coach, it's one thing to charter a flight, but if it's not a special plane, like some teams own their own planes, that's something that Geoff Lewis got to look into, I would think.
You would think so. He certainly has the money to be able to do it, whether it's buying his own, airplanes that are bigger and more conducive for a football team than, say, just like a person like you and me. I don't know how they do it. I once watched Connor Barwin. This is like 3 years ago, not when he was a player, just like recently. We were on the same flight out to Indianapolis for the Combine. So this is not apples to apples. I'm just talking in general because you're not going to get like a private jet to the Combine when you're a front office member. But he's 6'6" and he's long. You remember Connor's
6'6" or 6'4"? I think he might be 6'4".
If it's 6'4", he has the arms. I remember his wingspan. He's long, right? And those little flights, those commuter flights that only have seats on one side. That's
what I took to get here. Hello,
I watched him fold his body up like an accordion just to get. And he's just going to Indianapolis.
That's not good.
Yeah, so I wonder how the players do it. So I think it's an understandable gripe. Now, I've already seen people, whether it's fans or whoever on social media, sort of take shots like, why do these players feel they're entitled to these things? Isn't their salaries enough? I think that what you people
nothing to do with it.
Right. What you're ignoring is what the marketplace is and what the standard is. If there are 26 teams in the NFL that offer daycare or that offer flights that has, then players who have played on these teams and come to the Eagles see the difference, know the difference, and say, hey, you're not doing what other teams are doing.
That's true.
So it's all about what the market is and the standard is.
Right. My issue is just the team travel. I understand the daycare thing. That's the players brought that up, as you said in their NFLPA report, that most teams do this. Like it says other teams do. But to me, this does have something to do with potential how the players feel if they get. Think about it. And I know they dominated the Rams on the road in that in Week 12 game in LA, but still, you want your players to perform at a peak level. Give them a comfortable flying space. Because Connor Barwin, by the way, is a really good college basketball player, I think. Mm-hmm. These guys who have, if your arms are 34 and a half, or if your legs are really long, that's not cool, man. You're going to be cramped. Yeah, I call it feeling like a pretzel when I fly. I'm just under 6'1". But if you're cheapo like me and coach, sometimes I get upgraded, sometimes I don't, and it sucks when you gotta, as you said, when you're scrunched up.
All right, I need to ask you a question because there's one grading here that really is playing with my mind that I'm not sure I understand correctly. So the strength coaches got a B, and 88% of the players said that they get an individualized training plan from their staff, which ranks 27 out of 32, and that the players feel their strength coaches moderately contribute to their success, 28 out of 32. But the training staff gets a B+, and 90% of Eagles players report they receive enough one-on-one training treatment, ranking 9th out of 32. So can you help me distinguish between the training staff and the strength staff?
Well, the training staff, the strength staff, they do something different than the training staff. So I get that there's a differentiation between the two. But on your point, a B is a good grade, not a great grade.
Right.
But apparently that ranking is down, 27th or 28th. Mm-hmm. Most probably got, I don't have them in front of me, most probably got an A or an A-. That's all. Right. But the team travel thing, just to move this along here, it clearly, as it says, the players think the coaches should not have first class. That's a tough one, man. The coaches are pretty important. So are players, though.
Yeah,
so are players. So that's,
I mean, coaches are important, but if you want your players to be comfortable, but you made a great point. Yes. The Eagles have the highest winning road percentage in the NFL over the last 5 years. So clearly, it's not making them uncomfortable on game day if they have to wedge themselves into a flight.
I got one more for you. The Commanders, I'm told, that under Josh Harris, they've upgraded the type of hotels they stay in, way better apparently, and the players love it. Now Great. It's not in these reports about the team travel in terms of what kind of hotels they stay in, but I know for a fact that the players are blown away by it. They love it. Totally first class by Josh Harris.
All right, good stuff. And again, my big takeaway, and you brought this, I think a lot of this is just facilities driven, and the fact that a lot of these came at the end of last year or into the new year and not now. I think if you took it now, the positive vibes would make the grades better. But if you just look at where they got their real low, like locker room, D+, besides travel, even B for weight room. I just think that that's a facilities thing, and eventually, and even the ownership stuff. Once they built the bubble, by the way, has always been a source of contention, and it should be. It's a very antiquated. Okay. It's hard to practice. They've been talking about building a new one ever since I was at the News Journal, right? And we always thought it was going to happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
So, all right, you made me think of this real quick. So, a couple things here, so they talk about Jeffrey Lurie and how he positively contributes to the team culture, 13th out of 32. Jeffrey Lurie, see, this one to me is he's got to be number one. Okay, the players feel that Lurie is extremely committed to building a competitive team. He ranks 11th out of 32. How's he not number one? Come on.
I don't know what else he could do, but again, maybe they felt at the end of last year, the way the locker room
was, that they collapsed
contracts. Sure. Maybe people wish that he gave Son Reddick more money. Who knows what goes.
I love to know that. That's a great point. Now another thing is, why don't they evaluate Howie as truthfulness, right, being fair, taking care of them, whatever the case may be. Howie's recognized now. Howie Roseman is recognized as the NFL's general manager. I'd love to know how the players feel about him. That's actually, if not the NFLPA is listening or. Their management, but man, that would be something that I'd be very curious. How
about the fact that 93% of the players feel head coach Nick Sirianni is efficient with their time, and that only ranks 19th out of 32. 90. That means there are 13 other teams where the head coach is even more efficient with their time than 93% of players feel that way. That's pretty impressive. That means in general, head coaches must do a pretty good job of being really efficient with their players' time.
Well, they have to, because remember Chip Kelly did that. Although the Chip did not like to teach on the field, which is absurd because NFL coaches hate that he doesn't do that. But the meetings were very efficient, I heard, with Chip. Mm-hmm. But Nick, he finished A-. I wonder now. I'm sure that he would be, if he's not number one, probably in the top three. Treating players well, connecting. Obviously, everybody knows he's Mr. Connector. This is a good report. I'm glad we discussed this. Yeah. Learn a little bit more about this, and I'll be very interested to see, because I know some owners will actually react and put statements out when they're not happy with some of the grades. It's not that they're mad. That they're not mad at the players. They're just mad that they got a disappointing grade and they want to change things and make it better.
I would love for the NFLPA to truly kind of, I forget what it's called in scientific method terms, but You have like control group and variables, but like to truly get a better, more accurate gauge, I would love for them to do this thing twice a year, maybe when they do it, and then at the end of the year, and then compare the grades and marks, because you have to factor, I do think, into how the season goes and the vibes the players are feeling about things that are not part of this category, but might impact how they feel about that category, to get maybe a better idea of how they really feel in general.
Very fair. And by the way, one more parting shot. It would be funny, although I think the majority of them, like Howie, not all, but I would love the NFLPA should commission a study of 32 general managers, whoever's personnel control for each team, because some head coaches do. Love to know what they think of the GMs and rank them. That would be hilarious. That would never happen, but that would be hilarious.
Yeah, that would cause a little controversy.
Yes. Oh boy. Yep.
All right, so good stuff. The salary cap, we know it had been reported. Finally, it's out there. It is set at $279.2 million. That's a rise in just under $24 million from the year before. That's so? I know you had written down a couple of different rising numbers. Is this compared to like the year before or the year after?
Yes. So, all right. So $279.2 million is a 23.8 rise from the 24 cap, which was 255.4.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, from 23 to 24, wow, this is crazy. It rose 30.
That's where my eyes almost fell out. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from 22 to 23, because what happened is, as you know, it reversed during the pandemic. And I was talking, this NFL GM did not give me permission to use his name, although he's probably going to wind up coming on our show. Yeah, you talked to him at the Senior Bowl. Don't say who it is. You know who it is. I just gave it away. You know who it is. A really nice guy, and he goes, when I was a GM, the cap would go up $1 to $2 million, and he goes, you have no idea how hard it was to go to my owner and ask for more restructure space or cash, because the cash budgets are way smaller then, because the league is now a cash cow. Cap and cash are different, folks. Cap is a workaround. Cash is real. You're allowed to spend a certain amount of cash, and owners don't care about the cap structure. They leave that to the cap managers. You deal with it. I don't deal with this. I deal with cash.
Right.
There's a difference. And when we get soon, we're going to have a salary cap manager, a former guy on, who's come on, Shamir Suleiman, probably, who used to be with the Panthers. He came on our show once, and it was very good. He wants to do media stuff, so we'll get him on, and he'll give you a better explanation of how it works. But so the way this former GM explained it to me was, look, he goes, you don't spend any more money. You have way better flexibility. So you should have fewer restructures. Hello, Saints. You shouldn't be cutting players. Not that you should be cutting good players anyway. And it gives you the ability to structure the way you want to structure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's very important. The Eagles are the king of these option bonuses, these what I call inside contract signing bonuses. The same thing, really. They're just after the contract starts. You should be able to do more of them. You just have more flexibility for structure and restructures. And to extend, yes, you because honestly, you could do an extension with having $5 million in cap space. You could do that. Like you could always, because the first year cap number is small and it rises, as you know. Typically, Eagles rise in year 3, not 2. The big rise for the Eagles is usually year 3, by the way they structure. But the great thing is, NFL's never been more healthy with cash and cap. Even the Bengals are talking big. I can't believe that Duke Tobin is talking about like they're going to make. I'm sure it'll happen because he put it out there. That Jamar Chase will be the highest paid non-quarterback on offense, in the National Football League. Sure, and then he's talking about that they're actually going to pay T. Higgins finally. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Not tag him.
Yeah. Right. And then will they be able to pay anybody else after that? They'll have the greatest offers known to man.
Maybe he'll call David Tepper, Jeffrey Lurie, particularly Tepper is one of the richest owners, maybe the richest owner of the National Football League.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So that's, I think you just hit it on the head there, is that it's not like you're going to see teams just completely start spending more money than they ever had before. And by the way, I think I neglected to mention the number. So the rise from 2023 to 2024 was almost 31 million. So this rise now of 24 million doesn't even match what it was the year before. But like you mentioned, it still gives teams a lot more flexibility to restructure if they don't have to restructure as much as they might have thought. But it doesn't really change the fight. You're right. I don't think you're going to see a team now all of a sudden spend X amount of dollars more. It's just they have a different flexibility with their contracts. I did read, by the way, Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's not like the Bengals ever had a problem with cap space. That was never the problem. It's available cash.
Yeah, right. They kind of pride themselves on how they do their business, which is very weird.
By the way, speaking of the Bengals, they kind of hinted last year this is going to be the year to spend money. And if they do it like Duke Tobin's put it out there, he doesn't have the GM title, but he's got the GM powers. He's the personnel director and title, but he's the son of Bill Tobin. He was the guy who had the Mel Kiper issue.
Who the hell is Mel Kiper?
With the white hair.
Press conference.
Great television, right?
Yeah.
Great television. That's right.
Yeah. So the Bengals were one of those teams that jumped out to me, and so did the Patriots, because I think it was Elliot Wolf. Elliot Wolf basically said, everybody thinks we want wide receivers. No, we're going back to the formula, which is building through the trenches. And Mike Vrabel went up and said the same thing. We are building through the trenches. We need to get tougher. And man, if you're an Eagles fan, if that doesn't sort of sound the Josh Sweat / Milton Williams alarm for teams that have money to spend and want to build in the trenches, it wouldn't shock me if those are two teams that decided they needed to make a big spend there on those guys.
Well, what I would tell you with both of those players, look at the bad teams who have got a lot of cap space and they have ownership who will spend, or teams that are just really bad, like the Cardinals.
Right.
Well, they were competitive last season, but still a bad football team. They just don't have a lot of talent. And Jonathan Gannon's there. Just keep an eye on that, because Gannon certainly knows both of those players you just mentioned.
By the way, didn't he get the highest grade among all NFL coaches for head coach grades? I thought he got an A or an A+.
Yeah, he's a connector, man. Did you see who? I think I know Jim Harbaugh didn't get. There was one grade that wasn't very good for him.
Oh yeah.
Look, he turned that program around though, so they clearly bought in.
Yep.
But the bottom line is, with the cap, it's never been. This is great. I hope the Saints someday, under Kai Harley, who, by the way, Kai told me when I met him that he first worked with the Eagles with Joe Banner and salary cap, doing salary cap stuff. I wonder if he was there with Sean McDermott when Sean was there. I don't know.
I have no idea.
When Sean started, before he became a coach, he started with Joe in the salary cap division, the Eagles. But we'll see what happens here. But I could tell you one more thing here with free agency. This is one of the worst free agency groups I've seen in years. It's bad.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I wanted to bring that up. Yeah. Oof. Not only is it sort of subpar, especially coming after last year where you had Saquon, you had Jacobs, right, who signs with the Packers. Yeah. You had Xavier McKinney, who signed with the Packers. You had another running back, Derrick Henry. You had a pretty good crop of free agents. Not only is this year's class not as splashy, but it's older. A lot of these guys are long in the tooth who are quote unquote recognizable names around the league.
Honestly, Eagles might have the best group. In fact, they have the best group. I know it's not a lot of them, but 3 prime defensive free agents, no question about it. And then you've got Mekhi Becton, who I cannot wait to see what happens there. I assume I'm going to find out within the next 48 hours, because we have kind of a pretty good radar with that situation.
Right.
But the fact of the matter is, when you have his injury history, I know he's very young. He had a very good year, by the way, very good year. And who the hell knew when you put that scoop out in the spring, you would actually stay at guard and be really good. By the way, you could have made the argument he should have been a Pro Bowler. He was pretty good.
Yeah, he was pretty good. He was pretty good. It's not like this league is blessed with a bunch of great right guards. And to your point,
he's young.
Trey Smith is not going to be on the market because he got franchise tagged by the Kansas City Chiefs.
He's going to. Yeah, he's going to.
Oh, well, yeah, he'll get it. Or else they'll just come to a contract agreement. So that's one guy off the board. And I know we were talking about T. Higgins. It sounds like the Bengals are going to make sure he doesn't hit free agency either as well. So and those are two of the younger guys, that you would look for in free agency. So, yeah, it's not a great class.
By the way, here, okay, so let me give you an idea. The Bucs want Chris Godwin back. He wants to be back. I'd be surprised if he makes it to free agency. Okay, right. Amari Cooper's out there. He had a wrist injury. Okay, Stephon Diggs is coming off a torn ACL. Yeah. Elijah Moore's not the player that he once was with the Jets. I know quarterback play has been bad. Keenan Allen's near the end of his career. Brandon Cooks well into his 30s. The Chiefs want Hollywood Brown back.
Yep.
Signed a one-year deal with him last year. Josh Palmer, I think, could be a good number 3. If you look at it's like they're all mid-level guys. They're just mid-level.
Yeah. I mean, I think Hassan Reddick did not help himself with how he conducted himself in the last year and a half. So, Rasul Douglas is not going to be like a guy who like 11, 12, 13 teams are going to want. Javon Holland's a pretty good player. He'll be one of the better ones. There was one name, like Amari Cooper, not young anymore. And Khalil Mack, certainly 31. Not young anymore. So it's really, it's
not very good.
And by the way, Ronnie Stanley will probably get a decent contract, but he's been hurt a lot.
Hurt a lot. He actually stayed healthy. You're right. He's been hurt.
Buyer beware right there.
I was just going to say, there's a reason why guys make the free agency. It's extremely rare for a guy not to have at least one issue. With Saquon, it was injuries, obviously. It's football character, injuries, or age. Okay, it's one of those three. It's extremely rare. Like, or back in the day when you have just an unattainable cap problem, teams don't have that anymore. Mm-hmm. But when Peyton Manning had to be released, and Peyton Manning had the neck issue. But when the Colts released him, I don't know when we had Bill Polian on last. It's been a couple of years, but I don't know. I know he's talked about it before. I've heard him say it was a cap issue. Mm-hmm. But I know he also had the neck issue. I'm not sure if they could agree on it because of his neck. I'm not sure, but I mean, honestly, and this is just funny how things change. When Sam Darnold is the top offensive free agent, it's a strange year.
Yeah, that's fair to say. Definitely.
He had a good year, though. It was a great story. I give the guy credit after all the crap he took.
Totally.
If you thought Jalen Hurts takes crap, everyone bleeped on Sam Darnold, man. Because he sucked, frankly, before last season.
Absolutely. And he's still kind of, because of the way the season ended, wearing that how much like buyer beware label. Like, he needed the perfect scenario, perfect environment. Can he do that for like the Raiders? Who knows? It's a really good question. Before we get out of here, I want to ask you about the Abdul Carter situation. He's obviously not going to be an Eagle unless he just plummets for he's not going to be an Eagle. He is from Philly, and it is funny. Apparently he was at the Super Bowl and at the parade. Like, I love the fact that he knows.
Really?
Yeah, I love the fact that he knows that you can't do that. Like, once you're in the NFL and you're playing for like either the Raiders or the Titans or the Browns, you can't go to the Eagles. He's a big Eagles fan, and this was his last shot to show how much he loves the Eagles, and he's going to get drafted into the NFL. And then not be able to do things like that. But
wait, did he go to LaSalle High School?
Yes.
Is that where McDermott went?
Yes.
I think.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah,
that's incredible. I think I saw. Did I see Dan, the Patreon member? I think Dan said he chimed in. I think he said.
Yeah, he was the one. I didn't even realize until Dan pointed it out to me. So
that's really awesome. Yeah,
I don't remember what high school he went to.
Yeah, because now you can't. Since it's on, does anyone have tape of Abdul at the like cheerleading like this?
He's a huge Eagles fan. He's said it on podcast. He's like come out with this. He said he'd love to
Vinny, like our guy Vinny Curry was a big Eagles fan.
Huge Eagles fan coming out of Neptune, New Jersey, and Kenny Pickett as well.
Kenny Pickett, yep, that's great.
Yeah, suddenly it's like vogue to be a big Eagles fan around the world. But he is from Philly. It is cool to be a good local story. But the whole thing with the foot, Adam, I think that's a good like just a quick talking point here about how things can happen. Things get discovered at the combine that people don't know. Sometimes you know about it. Sometimes things get discovered, and that can really change the course of a guy's draft status or what happens to him for the rest of his career.
Yep. So there have been guys whose careers have been ended here by the scans, and they were. And by the way, the players didn't know anything about it. Neither did the family. It's awful. Yep. Now with Carter, it was well known in the scouting community. He had a shoulder issue. Not a secret to anyone. The stress reaction, which is a precursor potentially to a stress fracture. I unfortunately know about this type of injury. It's very common in the NBA. This is a right foot stress reaction. What happens is the foot has been impacted somehow. It could be small. It could be because the player typically has not had enough time to get at rest, to get off your feet, and it could have swelling. Something showed up on the scans, which is alarming, and because you were not aware of it. So Drew Rosenhaus played it down. He got all these sorts of opinions. He's told that Carter doesn't need surgery. Well, the one thing I will tell you is it's on my top 10 of agendas to query every single team. I just would like to know where they're at, because every team assesses a risk, an injury grade. I'm very curious with Abdul Carter, just a summary of how clubs feel about this latest issue. This is a big one, man. This I was like, oh no, I'm I hope for the kid. Now that I know he's from Philly, even more so. I hope he goes number one. That it doesn't affect it. But the problem is that the Titans are a really bad football team. They have yet another front office, and when you have the NFL's bottom 2, bottom 3 roster, there's a reason why you're there, because you're really bad, and they cannot have any issue. Whoever they take, if they really want to trade down, that's the word around here that I got. Of the things I've been gathering, it's clear they want to trade out.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I would tell you, folks. Eagles know this very well. When you don't have a franchise quarterback, you're looking for one, and they're looking for one. Yep. So, if they clearly, if they're trading down, they don't think Cam Ward's it. I'll leave it at that.
There you go. All right. Well, free agency is right around the corner. You're going to be out there in Indianapolis. So the next time we do an Inside the Birds, you'll have even more juicy stuff from out there. Oh, by the way, best meal so far for you has been where? Weber Grill?
Oh, okay. You knew it. You had to bring it up. The Weber Grill. I love that place.
I know you
can
do.
Eat healthy there.
Yeah.
So when I worked at ESPN, this is really funny. So I was bragging about it. So I got all the people I was working with, particularly the production people, were hungry, we're all starved. Okay, let's go. What happens? We didn't have a reservation. You have to make a reservation here once you get to Thursday or Friday at the Combine.
Mm-hmm.
So they put us in a round booth. It's made for 4 people. We stuck 8 in there. So if you see me on YouTube, no joke, I'm going like this. I couldn't move. And they're looking at me the whole time. You idiot. Why did you bring us here? The food was great, though.
Yeah.
We couldn't move.
Yeah.
I felt like I wasn't in an airplane, ironically.
I'm guessing you're maybe one of the few vegetarians that sets foot inside the Weber Grill.
Probably. Oh, no. You can get, there's some, I get a salmon. I get salmon there.
Oh, there you go.
They have a vegetable kebab, which I like.
Nice. That sounds good.
No. What's that?
I said that does sound good. I like a kebab, so that's good.
Yeah, I'll get.
I just like mine with a little meat in it. Or
yeah, I do. Of course. But I like the other one that I like is what's the breakfast place called? Not the morning after. What's it called? You know what I'm talking about. God damn. What's it?
Oh, I can visualize.
First watch.
Yeah,
we have First Watch back at home. It's a good place for folks. If you want to eat healthy or you like it, they have great food. I love that place. We have but they're back out east. And it's at Giordano's. Is that the place?
Oh,
and Andrew would go to.
Place. Yep.
And I go with a bunch. There's an annual dinner I go with. Hey, Tom McShay, how are you doing, man? Good to see you. There's an annual dinner I go with some NFL people and some scouts too, and some at Buca di Beppo. We usually do that.
Yeah, that's another good. It's weird. Indianapolis has a lot of chains, but in downtown Indy, they're just better. They're just really good. They're like upscale and they do a nice job. So all right.
So real quick, if any fans ever want to go, because I know they let fans in. If you ever want to go to this event, you don't need a car from the airport. Take an Uber or a Lyft. Lyft is cheaper, as I told you 4 years ago when you were doing it for using Uber and Lyft. More often than not. It's not always, but more often than not, Lyft. It's a 25-minute Uber or Lyft or cab if you want to. You do not need a car. I don't know the name of a street here. 27 years, 24 years I'm coming here. I just know where I'm going.
Maryland and Capital and
Illinois.
Yeah.
Right, but I don't know where it is. I have no idea. I just know where I'm going. Oh, and Steak and Shake. I'm getting my mint chocolate chip tonight, man. I cannot wait. Man. It's going to kill my stomach, but I don't care.
Man, I'm not missing it next year. I couldn't make it this time. I'm definitely on even if the Eagles do go to the Super Bowl, I'll be there next year. No doubt.
They very well could.
They could. But listen, your mock draft was awesome. People loved it. I'm going to, again, fuse it all together into one and have it on the platform soon. And Andrew DeCecco's Eagles 7-round mock draft is up. I love Andrew's because some people do mock drafts the wrong way. They're like, oh, I want the Eagles to take this guy in round 1 and this. No, he thinks what he knows of the Eagles, their tendencies, and he does a very realistic mock draft. Not to say that they're going to get the guys he's saying, but positionally where they value. He did an excellent job with his 7-round mock draft. So it's up on the podcast platform, the YouTube platforms. The podcast platform. So check it out there.
Yeah.
And he's got more great stuff coming on the David Chat.
By the way, if the Eagles make a trade, yes, Andrew, you'll have to do more players.
Yeah, he will. This is an easy year for him, right?
Yeah, right. I don't even know what they own. I haven't even looked lately.
Well, I think didn't last year they start off with like 11, and Andrew's mock drafts were like
for
the website version, they were like 5 pages long. I was like, oh my god, pick 189 overall, pick 222 overall.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
hey, but you never know, man. Don't look. Jalen Mills was a 7th rounder, was he not?
Yes, he absolutely was.
You never know, man. You never know what happens when you're picking late. Brock Purdy, hello.
Jason Kelsey, 6th round.
Yep, 6th round. Yep.
There you go. All right, my friend, we will catch up again. People got to be happy. We had ITB every day this week for the 2nd straight week as we just continue to churn out the off-season content. And that's going to do it for this episode of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the bird.